Hello, students. We are taking up the text of Poetics. In our earlier session, we had a brief introduction of what Poetics is, and we know that it is considered to be a landmark work in the history of literary criticism. It is considered to be the final statement upon topics like epic, tragedy, and it is important because in those times it was probably the first work on the art of criticism, and the type of treatment and perspective that Aristotle provides also lends it an important value. We will take up the first section of Poetics, which comprises of 5 chapters, and we'll divide it into 2 sessions. Today we will take up the first 3 chapters, which deal with imitation, principle of arts, medium of imitation, object of imitation, and manner of imitation. And talking about the structure of Poetics, we know that it is almost a text of 50 pages, which contains 26 chapters. The first 4 chapters are devoted, and the 25th also is devoted to poetry. The 5th chapter is, in a general way, devoted to epic and tragedy, the comparison between the two. The following 14 chapters are exclusively dedicated to tragedy, and he talks about the various components of a tragedy. The next 3 chapters are related with poetic diction. Further, next 2 are related with epic poetry. And the last chapter, the 26th chapter, is a comparison of epic poetry and tragedy. Let's begin with the first chapter. We will have to have the text in your hands, or you can just read the text from this slide and focus on the important features of the chapter. When Aristotle says that I propose to treat of poetry in itself and various kinds, it is very obvious that he makes it very clear that he's talking about the kinds of poetry. Then he says, I also wish to inquire into the structure of the plot. And then he says, he begins with the principles which come first. Referring to epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, and dithyrambic poetry, he says that music of the flute and the lyre is a common feature among poetry of the ancient as well as of the modern times. And there can be, based on these manners, there can be various conception and modes of imitation. They differ with one another in 3 respects. One is the medium, the objects, the manner or mode of imitation, which is very distinct in each type. He explains this with the help of examples also. Then he says that people or artists who imitate and represent various objects through the medium of color and form, and these are painters. So, and secondly, we have imitation produced by rhythm, language, and harmony, and these are people who are associated with music. So he says that the music of flute and the lyre, or harmony and rhythm alone, which is produced out of, say, the basic local instrument, shepherd's pipe, etc. For example, in dancing, only rhythm is used for harmony. So he says imitation as a broader concept, it means copying or mimicry, but it is removed from reality. And there are people, artists, who use various modes, manners in imitating the type of concept that they want to imitate. Then he refers to literature, because again in those times, in Aristotle's times, there was no particular category called literature. So he says there is another art, and he's referring to literature, which imitates by means of language, either in prose or verse. And then he refers to the Greek philosophers and writers. He says poets are called makers, and poet is called a maker because maybe they write elegiac poets, epic poetry, or whatever mode they prefer. This is something which is a peculiar feature of the poets because verse entitles them to the name. Then he further gives an example that, for example, a treatise on medicine and natural science, if supposingly it is brought out in verse and the name is given to the author, so we can say that two people like Homer and Empedocles, they have nothing in common but the meter. But one has the right to be called a poet and other a physicist. The only difference is that a poet is writing it in rhyme and meter. So, in a way, he says these are certain distinctions. Then he says there are arts which employ the means above mentioned, namely rhythm, tune, and meter. And he refers to dithyrambic and nomic poetry. We have to look for these references because the dithyramb was originally a hymn which was dedicated to Dionysus and sung solo. Later, it used to be called or employed in the form of a choral. And then he also mentions to the flute playing because we know that earlier in those times, these flute players, they were all poets. And then when he refers to Sophron and Xenakis and Homer, they are all ancient Greek writers and they were philosophers or scientists. So we have to look for these references if we want to go and read in further detailed analysis of what he means. So primarily in this chapter, when we look at the last line, he is talking of the differences of arts with respect to the medium of imitation. Whatever medium of imitation we adopt, a carpenter adopts the medium of skill to transfer the wood log into a table. A painter would use colors and brushes to make a painting. The writer would use language to write poetry or verse. So these are the differences which are related to specific mediums of imitation adopted by the artists. In the second chapter, Aristotle talks about the objects of imitation. And the first line is important because he says, since the objects of imitation are men in action. What he means to say is that whenever we are imitating anything, we are always imitating performance. We are always imitating men who are in action. Now, this can differ. They can be either of a higher or a lower type. He further explains this later on. What does he mean by higher and lower type? He says we must represent men either as better in real life or worse as they are. So we only have two choices. The artist has two choices to imitate men either as better, larger than life characters or heroes, or as worse, the worst type of villains or the worst flaws which exist in a human being or a person as they are. And similarly, he says this is also applicable to all arts. In painting also, we cannot actually paint the complete landscape as it is. The painter would paint the landscape either very beautifully or very better as it existed, or a little lower or worser than it happens to be. Then he refers to, as we talked earlier, he's talking of dithyrambs and gnomes, and he says they depict different types and they have different manners in representing their cyclops. And this is what Aristotle says a distinction between tragedy and comedy. We have to focus on the last line. He says that comedy aims at representing men as worse, tragedy aims at representing men as better in actual life. Now, what he sees is this kind of photographic, say, imitation or realism. He's concerned with that because he says we are trying to convey certain emotions or actions of people who perform. And this, he says, either we represent by exaggerating the follies and weaknesses, or we represent men as heroic or ideal. And this is the basic difference between tragedy and comedy. because poetry, according to Aristotle, is concerned with imagination, with conceivement, and not with the exact reality of appearance. So artists mimic, they copy, but they cannot mimic reality. They cannot mimic exactly. So either worse or better should be and is exactly the way how things are imitated in the hands of artists. Now, in the third chapter, he says there is also a difference of manner. What kind of a manner we or the writers adopt? The poet may imitate by narration. He can either he can either talk in first person, he can either be the first character or the personality who is speaking, as Homer primarily does in all his works, or he can adopt the mode of drama, which can be like he can imitate through the medium of narrative, or he may remain same throughout the poem, or the whole represent the story is represented dramatically in the form of an action. This, he says, are the three differences which distinguish artistic imagination: the medium, the objects, and the manner. So he also gives an example of Aristophanes. He says that Aristophanes both imitate persons acting and doing. Hence, he says the name of drama is given to some poems which also represent action. And we can understand this very correctly when we read tragedies, because that is written in the form of a poetry verse, but it has dramatic elements. So a tragedy is a combination of both. Later on, when he talks about the features of tragedy, he says that this is the reason why tragedy is considered to be superior of all art forms. So, were the first three chapters. Now we just quickly look at what we have known and understood. The first feature is that a common principle of all arts, painting, literature, music, dance, everything is imitation. We all imitate. But there are three differences he mentions: difference of medium, what kind of a medium the poet or the artist wants to choose; the object, what exactly he is trying to portray or imitate; and the manner in which he imitates. In medium, we have paint, brush, color, pen, etc. Object, we have landscape, men, emotions, whatever. Manner, narrative or dramatic. So, objects of imitation are human beings in action. We talked about this. Manner can be narrative or dramatic. Action, when it represented or imitated, is through men, which can be higher or lower. And this is how tragedy and comedy is born and created. We'll take up the next two chapters in the coming session. Thank you.